Good morning! So, I thought I would talk a little bit about refactoring and what I think is probably one of the most misunderstood, if you will, or rather it's a word that everybody who is a non-technical person dreads to hear whenever somebody starts on a new project. It's almost the it's like it's the biggest no-no word there is, because refactor means rewriting the same thing in a nicer way without producing, in their opinion, value, because they usually don't understand notions such as tech depth. So what is tech depth or technical depth? Technical depth is when you at some point in the code cut a corner, made a technical decision that makes moving forward difficult, and you did so knowingly or sometimes unknowingly in order to increase release speed or out of necessity. It's what we call a depth that you pay at a later stage, and unfortunately what usually happens is that you never pay that back and you simply keep on accumulating debt until the project becomes so poorly maintained that you need a big, or you think that you need the so-called the big rewrite, which is basically rewriting the whole system from scratch. That's usually why refactoring is the first thing under people's breath when a new person starts the project. Now, I will say that I don't think I've spoken to a single developer who has not at some point thought, hey, let's refactor that, or let's refactor this or that. And there are many strategies for doing that, but what I want to take, the angle I want to take here with this video is not so much about whether or not you should refactor. I argue that refactoring it's a good thing. Like, maintaining a healthy code base, it's an important topic, and I actually will tell you right now that for the most part people don't understand that software development is a maintenance thing as well as a innovative and creative thing, and maintaining good code is important. But, and here's the but, I think that there is something that we do as developers that is a little bit wrong. I think that we mistake sometimes, I think we all do, I have done it many times, and I've seen colleagues who are vastly more experienced than I am do the same thing. You will look at the piece of code somebody else wrote and think, hey, I understand what's going on here, but I don't like how this looks. I don't like how it's written. I think it could be clearer. I think it could be better. And then you rewrite that. And so you do that, and hopefully everything works, and then you're happy because it now feels good to you. Think about that for a moment. There was nothing wrong with the code. In essence, the real reason you refactored it was because it didn't look the way that you thought it should look. Now, I have a colleague, I will not mention him by name, but if he's watching this, he's probably aware of who he is. And I've seen this 100 times. Now, I am not saying that I write perfect code. What I am saying is that he doesn't write perfect code either. None of us do. None of us write perfect code. That's the whole point of having a code review. A code review is when we all sit down and have a look at the code that one of us wrote, and then we have a look and say, because that's in essence it. Is this good or bad code? Because these are subjective things, it's very difficult for you to actually answer this in an accurate manner. Yeah, it's subjective, right? And because it's subjective, there is no right answer. There are things that we all can, for the most part, agree on. But remember that software development, when you're working as a team, is a compromise. And so what I argue is that unless the code was so poorly written that even the person who first, unless we're talking some horrendously poor code that is going to actually impede the maintainability of the project has been written, then I ask you, why would you refactor it just so it feels better to you? Because if you don't add clarity, if it's really just about your own taste in how to solve a specific type of problem, with no clear benefit in terms of clarity or maintainability, then you're just doing it because you don't like the way that somebody wrote the code. It's like rewriting a book without changing the content, just changing the wording so it feels nicer to you. And think about that, because every time you change something about the code, of course you're writing unit tests, everybody is, and you have 100% coverage and all that stuff, but in theory, every time you change the code, you introduce the possibility of breaking it. And that's what I want to touch on. I think that you have to have the mindset, like there's a very nice saying in the software world where you measure up code's quality by the amount of what the fucks per minute people get when they read it. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. Because we all think differently and we solve problems in different ways, I think that in order to work as a team and in order to be productive on the whole, you have to let go of that perfectionism, that idea that something needs to be written in a way that you like it to be written. The only time you should really question an implementation is if you can see, if you have more knowledge, if you can see that this is actually going to damage the project, or that the code is in fact so poorly written, or so empirically, or universal opinion, not just your own opinion, but check around with your colleagues. Is this good? Is this a subject for a refactor? Because if you're refactoring just because it doesn't fit your own taste in writing software, you're actually introducing risk because of your own preferences. So think about that when next time you're going to go for the refactor, because in my opinion, I see a lot of, I work with several people. Some of them, some of the code that they write, I don't like it. I understand it. It's clear to me what's happening. It might take me a little while to just figure out exactly how they think about the problem, and then I can go, well, this works. It's not exactly how I would like it to be, but things very rarely are. So my suggestion to you is that if you understand the problem and you understand the solution, you can read it, and you simply don't really agree with how it was solved, be really honest with yourself. Are you disagreeing because there's a technical problem or a maintenance problem? Or are you simply thinking, hey, I should refactor this just because it's not written in the style that you would like to have it written? Because if that's your only reason for refactoring, I think you're making a bad choice.